Okay, well, I'm Angie Jones. I'm the program coordinator with Pulaski County CASA, and I've been doing this going on 8 years now.
I'm Santhula Groom. I've been an advocate for 7 years, and I'm also an adoptive parent and have been a foster parent in the past. I also do some outreach and community outreach with our program and train some of our volunteers. It's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Right, so we're excited to know that you're interested in CASA, and so we'll just share with you a little bit today. We're going to quickly talk about why CASA was formed, the role of CASA, the child's perspective, advocate's perspective, and judge's perspective about CASA, what our need is, how you can get involved. So CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and it was a judge's idea. Seattle Juvenile Court Judge David Sukup felt like he didn't have all the information he needed to make decisions, life-changing, life-altering decisions for children and their families in the foster care system. And so he really just asked his court clerk and some other folks how they could go about doing something different. They just wanted to brainstorm. And so they had a community meeting, invited some folks they knew, and out of that, CASA was born.
So what is the mission of CASA? The mission of Pulaski County CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, is to give abused and neglected children who are in the child welfare system a voice in court. And our vision is for a CASA advocate for every child in foster care. When a child enters foster care, this becomes a court case. It's called the dependency neglect case. And one of our primary roles is to be the voice of that child in court. And we're going to go more into detail later on about exactly how we achieve those goals. We're going to talk a little bit about what the role of CASA is. So CASA is an independent voice in the court system. We don't get paid to do what we do. We are volunteers, but we are also sworn officers of the court. We only have one client, and that client is the child, always a child, not the extended family, not the parents, just the child. So this is the role of CASA, to be the voice for the child and advocate for each child's best interest in court and anywhere else, including in the home, in the foster home, in the placement, at school, and so forth. Well, what does that role entail exactly? How do we achieve those objectives? So our role entails a lot of information gathering, a lot of facilitation, advocacy, monitoring, and reporting to the court. And I'm going to go very specifically through each one of these to talk about what it is we do. In order for me to advocate for the best interest of Johnny, I need to have all the available information to make well-informed recommendations to the court. So a very big part of our job is to access all the information regarding the child and children on the case, their family, the circumstances, and conduct an objective examination of this information so that we can become experts on that child. CASAs are everyday people. We are ordinary people, and we make a commitment to advocate for the best interest of the child. And the information that we gather is extremely important, not only to base our recommendations on that objective information, but to also give that information to the court. Now, we also facilitate, while we are independent of the child welfare system, we do work with other stakeholders. So we work with DCFS, we work with the attorney ad litems, who are the attorneys who represent the interests of the kids. We even work with the attorneys who represent the interests of the parents. We work with school officials, and we also work with physicians. We build bridges between the child and all of these stakeholders, and between the department and all of these stakeholders. We advocate for the child. Our primary role is to advocate for the best interest of each child. Well, how do we do that? First of all, in court, we actually file a court report for every court hearing. And in that court report, we give pertinent information to the court and the judge and the attorneys. Sometimes we also testify to direct knowledge we have regarding that child. And at the end of our court report, we have a section that talks about our concerns and a section that talks about our recommendations to the court. So for every concern, we list a recommendation. And by making a recommendation, we are asking the court to actually order something specific to happen. We also monitor the case. So we are the ears and eyes of the judge, basically. Judges depend on us for up-to-date, detailed information because for the most part, CASAs have one case, maybe two cases, maybe three cases at the very most. And people who take three cases are normally people who may be retired and have more time on their hands. But when we are able to focus on one case and the children who are part of that particular case, we make that our top priority. We have more time to devote to this than, let's say, a caseworker with DHS who might have 30 cases with multiple children on every case. No matter how devoted a caseworker might be, it is difficult to meet all of these needs and do one's due diligence when you have that many cases. And this is where we come in. We're the gap fillers. We make sure that these children don't fall through the gaps of the system. And we always report back to the court in the form of our testimony and our written court reports. So this is just a very quick overview of some of the things we do in our role as CASAs.
So you don't really have to have any major outside experience to be a CASA. Our CASA volunteers are just ordinary people who do extraordinary things for our community's most vulnerable children. They offer a consistent, caring adult presence in the lives of children they serve, and it leads to hope and to better outcomes for the children. So our advocates come from all walks of life. We have, people in their 20s advocating all the way up to retirees. We have working parents, we have professionals, we have homemakers, all sorts of people. This might be the person sitting on the row in front of you at church, or your bank teller, or anybody you encounter can do this. You don't have to have special education in social work. You don't have to be trained in court prep or anything. We do provide training and consistent support for our advocates. So I'm going to let Sanzula share with you the child's perspective, and there's an important reason she'll fill you in on about that.
Now, I don't know if you're aware, but when children enter foster care, if their parents' rights are terminated by the court, they become available for adoption. And we have an online photo gallery called the Heart Gallery, where children's pictures are placed with biographical information, and you can actually inquire about that child with caseworkers. Well, this is the picture of my daughter, Sarah. My husband and I adopted Sarah about a month and a week before she turned 18. And had you told me, 7 years ago when I became a CASA that I was going to be adopting a teenager out of foster care, I would have told you that you're crazy. But this is my Sarah, and this is one of the things she said about her amazing CASA, Terry Gregory. If not for my CASA, I would have never found my forever family. She was my voice in court, my constant, my mentor. She always believed in me, encouraged me, and gave me hope.
So this is another child's perspective. This beautiful young woman is Raven, and she is also a former foster youth. And she said about Miss Kay that every time she went to court, she never said anything. She had a court-involved case long before she met Miss Kay, her CASA advocate. So when she met Miss Kay told her, "I am your voice. I speak for you." So if she wanted to tell anyone anything after that, she told Miss Kay, and Miss Kay took care of it. So it was the first time that Raven had ever felt that she could actually speak up and say something in court and have a voice, and was brave enough to tell the court what she wanted. Now, we deal with children of all ages. Due to confidentiality, these women are both adults now and have allowed us to share. So, of course, we do deal with young children all the way through young adults that are still in foster care.
Now, these are two precious advocates, husband and wife, retired team, Dale and Sally Wallace, and I wanted to share their perspective. We feel like we are really making a difference in some kiddos' lives. We've seen kids reunited numerous times. As CASAs, we recognize that whenever it is safe and possible and can be done the right way, it is in the best interest of children to return to their family of origin. And we play an important role in helping such families heal and come back together. It is a beautiful day when we see families reunited because the right things and the right steps have been done to make that possible.
So this is Terry Gregory, and she was Sarah's advocate. And interestingly, I did not start out my CASA career with Pulaski County CASA. I started out with Grand Prairie CASA that serves Lona, Woodruff, Arkansas, and Monroe counties. And so Miss Terry was one of the CASA advocates that I supervised. And Zampula and I didn't know each other until after I came to work at Pulaski County. So we have a connection from beforehand. But what Terry said is that the CASA is the constant in the child's life. No matter where they go, you're there. And I can attest that she followed not just Sarah, but some of her other charges all around to different placements. There are not, as you can imagine, in rural Woodruff County, a lot of foster homes. So in that area, the children were very often placed outside of county. And so she did an excellent job keeping up with and being the constant for those children.
Yeah, and I can also attest to the fact that, we adopted Sarah almost 2.5 years ago. Oh, well, I shouldn't say that. Almost 3 years. It's going to be 3 years, February 4th. And Terry Gregory is still a part of Sarah's life and cares for her and stays in contact with her. Here's another perspective from Dr. Phil Goad, who is one of our advocates. And he says it's really the reward of knowing that you're doing the right thing and doing a good thing for someone that needs your help. I often try to encourage people to consider fostering and adopting, but I know that not everybody is able or willing to do that. And being a CASA volunteer is a great way to help a child who is stuck in the child welfare system through no fault of their own. And it is a very unique and impactful and powerful way to help a child.
Just one more quote that I have from Miss Terry Gregory, and this one was a really big one, something that it's really important for CASA advocates to do with children that have been through so much trauma and so many hardships prior to ever entering foster care, which in and of itself is traumatic and trying and quite an ordeal for the kids that are in foster care. She said, "I've learned how important it is for the child to have good self-esteem. So I work on that with each child." There's a portion of our our in-service training that our pre-service training that we do that really talks about how a CASA advocate can contribute to building resiliency in children, and this self-esteem is key to that.
And this is one of our judges' perspective, Judge Joyce Williams Warren, who recently retired. But she said that CASA oftentimes gives the court the information that might not receive otherwise. That's very true. And I explained earlier how we do a lot of investigative work. We do have access to all the information regarding the children and the parents in the case. And our investigative work brings to light many good pieces of information that are essential for judges to also make good decisions.
All right. Before I share Judge Branton's perspective, I do want to let you know we have two fabulous, very supportive of CASA and the work we do, new judges in place, Judge Bird and Judge Johnson, and they have they're very supportive of CASA. Not only do they enjoy having us in their courtroom and the different perspective and things that we bring so that they can make well-informed decisions, but they very often request us on certain cases. We do not have them integrated into this yet because we were only recently able to do interviews with them due to the pandemic. But this is one of our also recently retired judges, Judge Wiley Branson Jr., and he said the CASA is a volunteer that is simply there because they think it is the right thing to do. He really goes into depth in his interview talking about how everyone else that's involved is paid. That he's paid to be there, the judge is paid to be there, the social workers or the family service workers are paid to be there, the attorneys are paid to be there, but this CASA volunteer is just there because they think it's the right thing to do, and he gave that a huge amount of weight. And then I'll let Sanzila share about this other picture on the page for you.
Well, this is our daughter, Sarah. Her adoption happened out in Woodruff County. She was in foster care for 1,658 days. And that's the judge on the left, Judge Hudson. And on the far right, it's her CASA, Terry Gregory. And it really, if it wasn't for Terry, I don't know that Sarah would have even changed her mind and considered adoption.
So here's another quote from Judge Joyce Williams Warren. One person can indeed make a difference, and CASAs make a difference every day in the lives of children who are abused and neglected.
Well, so what is our need right now? To just give you an idea, we have over 650 children in foster care right now in just Pulaski County. We serve Pulaski County, and more than half of these children do not have a CASA. Walking through that journey of foster care is very traumatic and very difficult, and it would be traumatic and difficult for adults, let alone children who don't know how to process all the trauma that is happening to them, don't understand many times what is happening. Other people are making decisions for their well-being and they're separated from their families. These children are very emotionally vulnerable. So imagine trying to make that journey without having that consistent person in your life who stays on your case from beginning to end and advocates for your own interests. Your best interest, doesn't have any agendas, is not beholden to anybody. So imagine making that journey and walking that walk that is so painful without having that advocate next to you. Right now, we have a need for an additional 100 advocates just to serve the children here in Pulaski County. So it's very important for us to recruit and retain advocates.
So as Zanzula said, our program believes that every child deserves a caring adult in their lives who fights for their best interest. And so how can you help? Well, we hope maybe it's on your heart to become an advocate. And what exactly does that require of you? It requires, one, a caring heart. This has to be something that that you feel committed to and called to do. It requires 30 hours of pre-service training. We do that in a couple of different formats. We have a classroom training, which for the last almost 2 years now, we have been doing via Zoom or Google Meet because we have not been able to meet in person. We are housed in a county building and our guidelines are very safety conscious. And so we have not been allowed to do that in person. We have been doing that via a format like this. And then the second option that we have is a guided learning option, which involves going through the modules on your own and after each session scheduling a meetup with a trainer. And that we prefer the in-person. We love to get to have the interaction with everyone as they go through training and find that very valuable. But when people's schedules don't allow that, then we can use that guided learning. You have to be able to pass background checks, and then you have to be able to devote 10 to 15 hours a month to your case. That just varies depending on where your child is placed, how many children are in your case, those sort of things. Normally, a case after CASA is involved lasts 12 to 18 months. So we are asking for a longer commitment than you see other places, but so we do want to provide consistency for children while they are in foster care. If that is not something you feel you can do, there are other ways that you can help us. I'll let Zanzula share a few of those.
We are a national nonprofit child advocacy organization with local chapters in various counties throughout the United States. So a donation to our program is always tax deductible. You can host an informational meeting kind of like we're doing right now. You can say, hey, could you come and do one for my, I don't know, Bible study group or my book club or 5 of my neighbors, just to know a little more about CASA. And we're happy to do that. Please like us and follow us on social media and share our videos, our social media posts, or you can become what is called a friend of CASA, where you commit to be supportive of some of the things we do. For example, we have an annual open house for Christmas. We do a toy drive. We do gifts, Christmas wish lists for all of the children on our cases. And we put that list on Sign Up Genius, and people can, quote, adopt a Christmas list for these children to make their Christmas special. You can come to some of the events that we put on every year. I know we have some issues now with the pandemic, but we do have a fundraiser that we do that's a breakfast fundraiser we did this past year. We do a golf tournament and other fundraisers. You can commit to come help set up for those fundraisers. There are multiple ways you can become involved if you don't think that taking on a case and becoming an advocate is something that you can do. Just approach us and let us know. I'm interested. We will find a way to engage you, we promise.
All right, so if you do want to be a court-appointed special advocate, if that's something you're interested in pursuing, the beginning of that process is to go to our website. It's right here on the screen, Pulaski County CASA.org. On that website, there are a couple of different buttons. You can do it in the regular menu, but there's also a button, a heart-shaped button on our home screen at the top of the page that says volunteer, you can click on that. It takes you right to our volunteer application. And after you complete an application, we'll set up an interview with you. And then if everybody feels it's a good fit, we'll proceed in getting you set up for training. If you don't feel like it's a good fit for you at any point at that time or through training, then we totally understand it's not for everyone. But there are, like Fancy said, other ways that you can help. So we will, one, we want to thank you very much for coming today and for your time. And now, as I mentioned, we're recording. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording now.